There's no single pin I can drop on the map of my life to mark when the fracture between me and my older sister, Emily, turned into a gulf I couldn't ford. Maybe it was always there, a hairline split in the bedrock of our family, trembling beneath the surface, waiting for the right jolt to tear it wide. Growing up, our house was a lopsided theater. Emily center stage under a halo of light, me fumbling in the wings, half forgotten. I didn't begrudge her that shine, not at the outset. She was the golden child, the one our parents polished to a gleam. While I was the rough-hewn scrap they couldn't quite sand smooth. Mom treated Emily like she'd been dipped in honey and hung with stars. Every Saturday, she'd hoist her onto the chipped Formica counter in our kitchen, the radio crackling with Patsy Cline or Merle Haggard, and brush out her chestnut hair. Thick, wavy, catching the sun in streaks of bronze. She'd weave it into braids so tight they looked like they'd been measured with a ruler, pinning the ends with tiny butterfly clips she kept in a tin by the sink. She'd sew her dresses, too. Soft cottons in pale blues or yellows, stitched with daisies or little hearts along the hems, her singer humming late into the night. "My sweet girl," she'd murmur, cupping Emily's face, her voice warm as the steam curling off her coffee mug, a tenderness I could see but never grasp. Dad was just as smitten. He'd puff up at her piano recitals, his calloused hands clapping loud enough to echo off the auditorium's peeling walls, or lean over the grease-stained counter at his auto shop, spinning yarns to his crew about her latest debate win. Her voice crisp, her arguments bulletproof. Me? I was the kid who'd rather scramble up the knotted oak out back, its bark scraping my shins raw, than sit still for their praise. I'd tromp inside with mud caked on my keds, a smart-ass quip ready to fly, and catch their sighs like a gust of wind slamming a door shut. They didn't know how to corral me, so they mostly let me roam. I didn't covet Emily's spotlight, not at first. I liked my own patch of wild, the way I could slip out the creaky screen door and melt into the woods behind her squat, brown ranch house on the edge of town. The air out, there was thick with pine and wet moss, the ground spongy underfoot, and I'd lose hours chasing skittering lizards or sketching jagged heroes in the dirt with a snapped twig, their capes billowing in my mind. I'd perch on a fallen log, the bark rough against my thighs, and watch the creek gurgle past, its water glinting like spilled coins. No one hovered, no one called me back, and I told myself that was liberty. But I wasn't blind. Mom would sink into the faded floral couch, wrapped as Emily spun tales of her day. Every gold star, every teacher's pat on the back, her voice dancing over the clatter of her fork against the plate. I'd mutter about the garter snake I'd caught, its scales cool and slick, and get it distracted. "That's cool, Jake," as she scrubbed his skillet, her eyes elsewhere. When I tangled with multiplication tables, Dad would grunt from his recliner, "Figure it out, kid," his boots scuffing the linoleum as he headed to his shed, the door banging shut like a full stop. But he'd camp out with Emily at the dining table, its oak scarred from years of spills, graph paper fanned out, guiding her through algebra like it was a holy quest, his patience a river that never ran dry. I swallowed it down, convinced myself I didn't need their hands steering me. I was tough, a wiry little scrapper who could stand alone. For a while, that lie held me up. The shift came slow, a tide creeping higher, when Emily clocked that her golden girl halo wasn't just a perk. It was a blade. She didn't just want Mom and Dad's worship. She wanted me to feel the weight of her crown, too. It started with these sly jabs, coated in a giggle, so you'd miss the barb if you weren't tuned in. "Oh, Jake, don't sweat it. Not everyone's cut out for the bright lights," she'd say, tossing me a smile that glittered like shattered glass, her hazel eyes, sharp as flint, glinting with a cold edge. Or she'd accidentally tip her Kool-Aid across my sketchbook, the one I stashed under my mattress, its pages thick with heroes scratched out in smudged pencil, and gasp, "Whoops, clumsy me." Mom would tut at me from the sink, her apron dusted with flour, and say, "She didn't mean it, Jake. Don't be so prickly." Prickly, sensitive, touchy. They flung those words at me like stones, like I was defective for not grinning through her cuts. That label stuck, a burr under my skin. She'd raid my stuff like it was her personal stash, my Walkman with its frayed cord, my dog-eared X-Men comics, even my skateboard, its wheels wobbling from overuse, and return them busted, bent, or vanished. I demand them back, voice cracking with fury, and Dad would peer over his Budweiser, drawling, She's your sister, Jake. Share. Share? Emily didn't share a damn thing. Her room was a fortress, CDs lined up like soldiers on a white shelf. Her vanity a shrine of lip glosses and scrunchies I'd catch hell for glancing at. If I brushed her precious Tamagotchi, she'd wail like I'd smashed it, and I'd end up raking the yard while she sulked prettily on the porch, sipping lemonade. It was a rigged deck, and I was always the joker. By middle school, her digs sharpened into claws. She'd parade me for her clique, girls with frosted bangs and braces, tittering behind glittery binders as I slunk past, my sneakers squeaking on the wax floors. I was a runt then, short and skinny, my curls a wild tangle no comb could conquer, and Emily turned it into her stand-up act. Jake's still waiting for puberty to RSVP. She'd holler across the lunchroom, her voice slicing through the buzz, tray balanced like a scepter. Or she'd catch me sketching in the library, gritty vigilantes with capes snapping, my refuge. And snort, "What's that? Baby scribbles," while her posse cackled, their braces glinting like tiny knives. I'd hunch over my work, jaw locked, pretending it rolled off me. But it didn't. It piled up, heavy as river rocks, every snicker a weight dragging me down. She knew how to twist a knife. One crisp November day, the air sharp with wood smoke, I'd poured my soul into a drawing. A scarred hero vaulting over a splintered skyline, my best yet. I left it on the kitchen table, dumb enough to think it'd be safe amid the clutter of bills and coffee mugs. When I got back from biking to the corner store, pennies jangling in my pocket for a Snickers, it was gone. I found it later, shredded into jagged strips, stuffed in the trash under a soggy tea bag, the ink bleeding into a mess of gray. Emily lounged on the counter, swinging her legs, sipping a Sprite with that smug curl to her lips. "Thought it was garbage," she said, shrugging. I lunged, shouting, my voice ricocheting off the cabinets, but Mom grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "She's just teasing, Jake. Don't make a mountain out of it." Teasing? I stood there, chest heaving, staring at the ruins while Emily crinkled her can, cool as ice. The powerlessness seared a brand on my ribs. School was a battlefield. Emily, 2 grades up, ruled like royalty, straight A's, cheer squad captain, homecoming princess, while I was the weirdo who'd rather sketch than shoot hoops with the jocks. The bullies sniffed me out early, guys with buzz cuts and chipped teeth, slamming me into lockers, swiping my PB&J, hissing freak or shrimp as I shuffled by. I never snitched, especially not to Emily. I knew she'd turn it into gold for her arsenal. And she did. One humid May afternoon, I caught her by the bike racks with her crew, their laughter cutting through the drone of cicadas. "Jake's such a wuss. Even the rejects won't claim him," she said, flipping her hair, her cheer skirt swishing. She saw me freeze, mid-step, and instead of backing off, she grinned. "Prove me wrong, shorty," she taunted. Next day, her buddy Kyle, a hulking kid with a chipped incisor, tripped and dumped my backpack in a puddle, her words echoing in his smirk as the mud soaked through my math homework. I started armoring up after that. My room turned into a bunker, sketchbooks teetering on my wobbly desk, Metallica or Nirvana blasting through my headphones, the bass rattling my skull like a war drum. I'd sink into my art, crafting worlds where I wasn't the prey, heroes with fists like sledgehammers, cities I could bend to my will. It was my lifeline, frayed but holding. Emily didn't notice or didn't care. She glided through life, leaving me to sweep up the shards, either blind to the damage or savoring the cracks she left behind. The real snap came at 13, a wiry kid with too much rage and no vent. Emily had this habit, barging into my room like it was her domain, rifling through my stuff just to see me twitch. One Saturday, I'd been out biking, the chain clanking as I pedaled hard against a stiff breeze, and came home to find her sprawled on my bed, flipping through my journal. It was a cheap spiral thing, its cover creased, packed with raw scrawl. The bullies' jeers, Mom and Dad's neglect, how Emily's shadow smothered me. Private as a prayer. She looked up, grinning like she'd struck oil. "Holy crap, Jake, you're a nutcase," she said, dangling it above her head. I lunged, but she darted past, cackling, her sneakers slapping the hardwood as she bolted downstairs. I chased her, yelling, "Give it back, you asshole!" But she beat me to the kitchen, shoving it into Mom's hands. "He wrote nasty stuff about me," she whined, her voice pitching into a sob, tears welling like she'd rehearsed it. Mom skimmed it, her frown carving lines in her forehead, while I stood there, panting, flayed open. "Jake, this isn't okay," she said, her tone heavy as lead. "You don't trash your family like that." Emily sniffled, pure melodrama, and I lost it. "She stole it. It's mine." Mom just shook her head. "Apologize," she ordered, handing the notebook back to Emily like it was her trophy. Dad shuffled in, saw the chaos, and muttered, "Sort it out, kids," before escaping to his shed, the screen door banging shut. I stormed upstairs, ripped every page from that journal, and torched them in a rusty bucket out back, the smoke thick and acrid, curling into the dusk until my eyes burned. She wasn't getting another piece of me. I went dark after that. Dinner was a grim endurance test. Emily chirping about her science fair ribbon, Mom and Dad nodding like trained seals, me staring at my peas, counting the seconds till I could bolt. Mom tried to patch it sometimes. "You two used to build forts together," she'd say, her voice soft with a nostalgia I didn't share, her hands twisting a dish towel. I'd grunt and shovel food. Dad would glance up from his paper, mumble, "Sibling scrap, it's normal," and flip to the sports page. They didn't get it, or wouldn't. Emily wasn't just a rival. She was a tempest, and I was done being the driftwood. There was one bright spot back then. Tommy Russo, my best friend since third grade, a gangly kid with a gap-toothed grin and a mop of black hair. He lived 3 houses down, his yard a jungle of overgrown grass and rusted bikes, and we'd spend summers tearing through the woods, building rickety forts from plywood scraps, or trading comics on his porch, the boards creaking under us. Tommy didn't care about Emily's shine. He'd roll his eyes when I griped about her, saying, "She's a princess, man. Let her have her castle." He was my anchor, the one person who saw me without her filter. But even Tommy couldn't fix the rot at home. High school should have been a reset, but Emily's shadow stretched long. She graduated by my freshman year, off to some elite college on a scholarship. Wellesley, I think, all ivy and prestige, but her myth clung to the halls like damp rot. Teachers sighed my name. "Oh, Emily's brother?" She was a star, and I'd slouch in my seat, knowing I'd never match her orbit. Her old crew, still seniors, kept her torch lit. Emily's little mistake, they'd hiss, shoving me into the gym bleachers or accidentally kicking my books down the stairwell, pages flapping like broken wings. I took it, head down until I couldn't. The summer before sophomore year, I broke. Puberty hit late, but hard. I shot up 8 inches, my voice dropped to a growl, and my frame thickened from push-ups I'd been grinding in the basement, the concrete cold and gritty against my palms. I was sick of being the target. One sticky October day, Tyler, a linebacker with a buzz cut and a mean streak, pinned me against the vending machines, his breath sour with Mountain Dew. Something snapped. I shoved him off, hard, and when he swung, I ducked and smashed my fist into his jaw. Blood sprayed. He hit the tile, and the hall went silent as a crypt. Word spread like wildfire. Jake hit back. The taunts didn't stop cold, but they shrank. Tyler's crew didn't want a rematch. I started lifting Dad's old dumbbells in the garage, sweat dripping onto the oil-stained floor, forging my anger into something I could wield. Mom asked if I was showing off for a girl, her tone teasing. I ignored her. Dad caught me at it once, nodded, and said, "About time you grew some guts." High praise from a man who rarely looked up from his paper. Emily rolled in that winter break, all college swagger and tales of frat parties, acting like she still ran the show. I kept my head low, grunting when she tossed her old bait. "Still doodling your little heroes, Jake?" she'd say, smirking over her peppermint latte, the steam curling up like a question mark. I'd shrug and split. She hated that, me not biting through her offer stride. I was too busy eyeing a beat-up Stratocaster at the pawn shop downtown, its sunburst finish chipped, but singing to me. Music was my new armor, chords I could bend to fit my scars, a refuge she couldn't touch. But Emily couldn't let it rest. I've been saving for that guitar since April, mowing lawns in 90-degree heat. The mowers roared, drowning out my curses, hauling mulch bags for the neighbors until my shoulders ached, stashing every crumpled bill in a coffee can under my bed. Dumb spot, yeah, but I didn't peg her for a thief. One frigid December night, I trudged home from a pickup game, knees stiff, breath fogging in the dark, and reached for the can. Empty. My stomach dropped. Downstairs, Emily was preening in a new leather jacket, gushing about her steal from some outlet mall 2 towns over. I knew. I stormed into the living room, voice low but trembling. "Where's my money, Emily?" She blinked, all wide-eyed innocence. "What money? You're losing it." I stepped closer, fistballed. "You took it. Admit it." She scoffed, tossing her hair, but Mom swooped in, hands flapping like a startled bird. "Jake, stop shouting. What's this about?" I laid it out, every blister, every buck gone. Emily sniffled, tears welling on cue. "I just borrowed it, okay? I'll pay him back." "Borrowed? Bullshit." Dad stomped in, face dark as a thunderhead. "Did you take it?" he barked. She squirmed, nodded. "Give it back," he said. No room for her act. She had 80 of my 100 left, forked it over, glaring like I'd framed her. Dad grounded her for the break. No car, no phone, no nothing. It wasn't everything I'd lost, but it was a crack in her shield. She sulked, shooting me venomous looks across the table, but I stood tall. I'd drawn blood. She backed off after that. Not out of grace, but because I'd tilted the board. We settled into a frosty stalemate, barely speaking and less forced. I bought that guitar with what I scraped back, taught myself riffs in the dark, the strings buzzing under my fingertips, each note a wall she couldn't scale. Tommy'd come over sometimes, sprawl on my floor with a Coke, and strum along, badly, grinning as I fumbled through Sweet Child O' Mine. "You're getting good, man," he'd say, and I'd shrug, but it felt like something solid in a world of quicksand. Years rolled by. I graduated, barely, math dragging me down, and moved to the city, an hour's drive from the old house, crashing in a shoebox apartment with peeling paint and a radiator that clanked like a dying engine. Landed a gig at a graphic design firm. Nothing sexy, just tweaking logos for dentists and tire shops, but paid the rent and kept my lights on. I kept drawing, too, piling up comics about misfits and brawlers, dreaming they'd hit print someday. Tommy stayed local, took a job at the lumber yard, but we'd meet up when he visited, beers at a dive bar, swapping stories about nothing and everything. Emily stayed the family jewel, calling home with law school triumphs, moot court wins, clerkships with big shot judges. I dodged Mom's updates, steering talk to the weather on my latest deadline. I was done measuring myself against her shine. Work had its own thorns. There was this guy, Nick, a slick designer with gelled hair and a smirk, always gunning for the same gigs I was. He'd swipe credit for my layouts, schmooze the boss with a grin, and leave me grinding my teeth in the break room, coffee bitter on my tongue. One day, I caught him pitching my concept for a brewery ad, my sketches, my tagline, to the client, acting like he'd birthed it. I called him out in the meeting, voice steady, and the room went quiet. "That's mine, Nick. You want to explain?" He stammered. The client raised an eyebrow, and the boss, finally, sided with me. Nick backed off after that, but it lit a fire. I wasn't letting anyone else steal my shot. Then Mom called one Sunday, voice taut as a bowstring. "Jake, Emily's coming home. She wants to talk." I snorted. "What's her play now?" Mom sighed. "She says she's changed, wants to make it right. Please, just meet her." I wanted to hang up, but a nagging itch, curiosity, fatigue, hooked me. "One chance," I said. She showed up at my place on a gray Tuesday, dressed sharp in a blazer and slacks, but her hands fidgeted, betraying her poise. We sat on my sagging couch, the radiator hissing, and she dove in. "I was awful," she said, picking at her nails. "I don't have a reason. I saw you not needing them, and it ate at me. I am sorry, Zeke." I waited for the twist, but she kept going, about her need to win, how she'd lashed out because I wouldn't bend. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said. "Just had to say it." I leaned back, arms crossed, sifting the mess in my chest. I could have unloaded every wound, every time she'd shrunk me, but the part of me that had clawed free just wanted it done. "You don't wipe it clean with words," I said, voice flat. "But I'm not hauling this forever. I got my own life." She nodded, eyes wet but steady, and left without pushing. No hugs, no tears, just a quiet exit. I sat there, the city's hum seeping through the thin walls, feeling a weight shift, not gone but lighter. Life kept churning. Work bloomed. I landed a freelance gig illustrating an indie comic series, a scrappy kid battling a cracked world, my name inked on the cover in bold. It wasn't big time, but it was mine, and seeing it on the shelf at Panel and Page, a dingy comic shop with flickering neon, hit me like a freight train. I met Sarah at an art gallery downtown. Short hair, dyed electro blue, a laugh that sliced through the room's pretentious drone. We clicked over warm Pinot and a painting that looked like a toddler's tantrum, started dating a few weeks later. She was sharp, real, nothing like Emily's glossy posse, and I kept her close, shielding her from my family snarl for as long as I could. We'd spend nights on my fire escape, her head on my shoulder, the city sprawling below, smoke and steel and possibility. Then Dad called late one night, voice rough as sandpaper. "Jake, Emily's in deep shit." My gut sank. "What now?" He exhaled, heavy. "Arrested. Fraud. Her law firm. Your mom's a wreck, and I'm tapped out." I gripped the phone, the room spinning. Emily, the flawless in cuffs? He spilled it. She'd fudged records for a crooked client, forging docs to mask losses, and got nabbed in a federal raid. Years in prison loomed. "She's asking for you," he said. "Only you." I laughed sharp. "Me? After all this?" He didn't push, just waited. I cursed and said I'd think it over. I drove to the detention center next morning, knuckles white on the wheel, arguing with myself the whole way. She didn't deserve my time, not after decades of her poison. But some dumb thread, loyalty, pity, closure, pulled me through those steel doors. She looked hollow behind the glass, hair lank, face gaunt, no trace of that smug spark. She grabbed the phone, voice shaky. "Jake, I fucked up. It started small, and I couldn't stop. I need you here." I stared cold. "Why me?" She swallowed. "You're the only one who ever saw through me. I can't fake it with you." I should have bolted. Instead, I stayed, listening as she unraveled, chasing status, bending rules, crashing when the lies collapsed. "I'm not begging for a rescue," she said. "Just needed you to know." I nodded, throat tight, and left without a word, her sunken eyes trailing me out. Sarah was there when I got back, sprawled with Neuromancer. "You look like hell," she said, patting the couch. I collapsed beside her and let it all spill. Not just the arrest, but the years of baggage, how Emily's shadow had warped me without me clocking it. She traced my palm, quiet, then said, "You don't know her squat, but you don't have to let her define you either. You're bigger than her mess." She was right. I'd been Emily's brother too long, her victim, her foil. Time to just be Jake. Tommy swung by a week later, his truck rattling into the lot, and we hit the bar, neon buzzing, pool balls clacking. I told him about Emily, the cuffs, the call. He whistled low. "Karma's a bitch, huh? You gonna help her?" I shrugged, sipping my beer, the bottle sweating in my hand. "She's not my problem anymore." He nodded, didn't push. "That's why we worked." Tommy knew when to let it lie. Dad called again. Emily's trial was near, Mom begging him to help, but he was stone. "She dug this hole," he said, voice flat. "I'm not climbing in." Mom called me next, sobbing. Emily was still her baby. We couldn't abandon her. I let her ramble, stayed neutral. The trial hit fast. 5 years, a light sentence for the chaos she'd sown. Thanks to a hired gun lawyer she barely afforded. I didn't go, caught it online, star attorney jailed and fraud bust, and felt a hollow calm. No win, no loss, just silence. Life settled. Sarah moved in. I replaced a mash of her sci-fi paperbacks and my art supplies, a chaos I craved. The comic took off, second run greenlit. Fan letters piling up from kids who saw themselves in my hero. One, a shaky note from a kid named Max, said it got him through his parents' split. I pinned it above my desk, a talisman. Dad's arthritis flared, slowing his wrench-turning days, but we got tight. Sunday brunches at the diner, grease-soaked hash browns, and his Vietnam tales, the air thick with burnt coffee and memory. Mom softened, less Emily-obsessed, even cooked for me and Sarah. Lasagna with too much ricotta, asking about our lives like she meant it. Emily sent a letter months later. Prison paper, her scrawl jagged. Holding up, figuring out who I am without the shine. "Hope you're okay. Iki no playas, no drama." I read it, stashed it in a drawer with old receipts. Didn't reply. Maybe never will, but kept it. Dad sat me down last month, coffee steaming. "Rewriting the will," he said, eyes hard. "Emily's out. You get it all. House, savings, the works. It's not pocket change. Dad's a retired mechanic with a paid-off mortgage, a fat 401k, pushing $1.5 million. I blinked. "You sure?" He nodded. "She chose this. I'm done." Mom slipped, told Emily about the will, probably in a weak moment. 2 days ago, she showed up, unannounced, banging on my door, her hair wild, eyes red. "Jake, I'm screwed. No job, no money, nothing. Talk to them, please. She was crying, small and frayed, her jacket threadbare. I let her in, stood by the counter as she paced. I didn't mean for this, she said, voice breaking. I just need a lifeline. I stared, arms crossed. You built this, Em. You don't get to lean on me now. She begged, tears streaking her face, but I shook my head. Go. She left, sobbing, and I locked the door, the silence heavy. Sarah found me after, handed me a beer. You good? I nodded. She's not my chain anymore. The letter's still there, a ghost I can ignore. Outside, the city pulses, horns, sirens, life, and I step on a fire escape, the air cool against my skin. I've got Sarah, my art, a future I forged. Emily's a whisper fading out, and I'm free. Not her brother, just me. So what do you think of Jake's wild ride? From dodging Emily's chaos to carving out his own path. Pretty intense, right? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Did he do the right thing cutting her off, or should he have thrown her a lifeline? If this story hit you in the feels, smash that like button and subscribe for more real-life roller coasters. Hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. See you in the next video.